Hey, welcome back to the School Transportation Nation podcast, episode 53. I am Tony Corpin, publisher of School Transportation News. This episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software. And stay tuned for CEO Antonio Civitella, who will be joining us a little later today. Also, today's tech tip is brought to you by Zonar, a leader in smart fleet management. And we have a special message from Purell, America's #1 trusted brand of hand sanitizer.
Hello, nation. Once again, I'm Ryan Gray, editor-in-chief of School Transportation News. Our school district guest a little bit later is going to be Reghan Mahaffey, director of transportation for Aspen Public Schools in Colorado.
All right, we're going to start off with a special message from our friends at Purell brand, America's #1 trusted brand of hand sanitizer. Select Purell products are now available at discounted pricing to support safe school reopenings, including Purell Surface Disinfectant. This revolutionary disinfectant is effective and worry-free to use on hard and soft surfaces without requiring any PPE or hand washing after use. Kills most organisms in 30 seconds, including human coronavirus. Contact your distributor for details or visit gojo.com/100days STN. Ryan, big headline for you guys. We got the March issue out now on the STN website. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Our guest Reghan from Aspen Public Schools is also featured in our Clean Air article talking about school bus air filtration, purification, lots of really good stuff. Ryan, as well as one of our freelance writers, Jim Romeo, put a great feature article together to kind of give you guys clarity on, what is the latest and greatest in air purification, sanitization. It's just a great overall story. Ryan, you want to give them a little bit of an idea of what that story entails?
Yeah, well, basically, we just talked with some school districts that are using ventilation systems. Not a whole heck of a lot so far. Everybody is, of course, cleaning between runs at the end of the day, doing all the high touch point areas. Not as many readers out there are telling us that they are using ventilation systems. We've been talking about this for a while now. This is an approved use of both CARES Act and Consolidated Appropriations Act funds. Imagine that once the third stimulus or relief package is passed, hopefully sometime this month by Congress, that those ventilation systems would also be covered by that funds. But we wanted to talk to some districts that are actually using it and find out how they implemented it, what they're seeing as a result. So Reghan is one of those that fairly early on here, going back just a couple months, that has utilized about 30 of these systems on their 30 buses. So she'll be talking a little bit about that and getting in depth. But again, as you mentioned, Tony, the March issue is out. You can get it digitally. Just head over to stnonline.com and click on magazine, and you can go to our digital edition section.
Yeah, Ryan, we also got the conference season to bound, right? Everybody's kind of thinking, are there going to be conferences coming up? I think we've already had a lot of postponements. We have our TSD conference that normally happens in March. That one obviously got bumped back. It's November 17th through the 22nd down in Dallas, Frisco, Texas. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody in the fall on that one. Also, I think I saw an announcement that NCST postponed. Do you have an update on that for us, Ryan?
Yes, a couple of weeks ago now, National Congress on School Transportation, the steering committee, they had been meeting for a while trying to figure out, can they meet in May? You'll remember, of course, it was supposed to be held last May, but it became a very early victim to the COVID-19 pandemic. As those conversations have been going, they were looking to try to make it happen once again in Des Moines this May. That's not going to happen. They were looking at a virtual option that apparently is also not viable. So right now, the latest is that they are looking at potentially moving it to May 2022, but it's looking likely that it could just be extended out till the next 5-year increment, which would be 2025.
Got it. Yeah, Ryan, it's kind of crazy too. It's kind of a sliding scale with conferences. There's been a lot of events, a lot of state associations that are kind of on the books, considering maybe they'll do a conference. I know I saw a note from OAPT out in Ohio that they're looking at doing their conference in mid-June. And, we always have STN Expo Indianapolis in partnership with the STAI, which is going to be postponed from June back to October. So it's going to be October 1st through the 5th. You guys can check out stnexpo.com to check out all our conference dates. We're updating everything regularly, but it just looks like it's just too soon for us to have anything in the summer. We're going to be pushing back. Additionally, we sent out a survey to our audience about STN Expo Reno that we do. That's our flagship show every year. And, the audience has spoken, and looks like we're going to be postponing that show as well to December 5th through December 10th. STN Expo Reno, save the date, December 5th through the 10th. We'd love to see you guys there. There's going to be more updates at stnexpo.com. So keep an eye on the website for all that information. And in between, we don't want everybody to kind of miss out on all that good information. So we'll be also looking at our Bus Technology Summit sometime in the summer. So we'll make an official announcement on Bus Technology Summit shortly. But you guys keep an eye out for all the details on our website and all the updates there. But yeah, Ryan, big news items lately. Seems like they're still struggling with this whole $15 minimum wage. I assume this big $1.9 trillion stimulus is going to pass here sometime in March, right? Maybe we think the unemployment thing is driving maybe the forces to get it signed sooner than later. And I'm very curious what you're hearing and seeing on that, Ryan.
Yeah, well, I mentioned in the podcast last week that the indication is that the 1.9 trillion has to be passed this month because that's when the current unemployment insurance runs out. They're trying to extend that with this package to the end of August, essentially, to keep all those unemployed people getting some paychecks. And as I mentioned last week, increasing it from $300 a week to $400 a week. But it seems like start again, stop again with this minimum wage. We were talking about it. Then there was an amendment passed in the Senate about a month ago or so by Joni Ernst in Iowa that basically wanted to take that off the table because a lot of lawmakers, even including some on the Democrat side, Bernie Sanders, who's really championed this, came out and said that he agreed that perhaps this should not be part of the COVID-19 relief package. But the House Democrats went ahead and pushed it back through. We talked a little bit about budget reconciliation that they were trying to utilize to hammer in that provision. Last week, the Senate parliamentarian ruled on this $15 minimum wage and basically put the kibosh on it. So it looks like it's dead again. So the ping pong match continues. This week, it's off, it looks like. Last week it was on. What does next week bring? We'll just have to wait and see. But certainly, I know that a lot of districts are looking at this and they want to know what's going to happen. But a lot of the folks that I've talked to, a lot of the districts across the nation, they're already paying their school bus drivers over $15 minimum wage. So, and you got to remember that if this goes through, whenever it goes through, it's not going to take effect for another 5 years. So it's not like something that immediately the hammer is going to drop and we have to figure out how to start paying everybody a minimum wage of $15. But it's not seeming like it has the impact or the potential impact on school bus drivers and school transportation as maybe we thought originally.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me too, Ryan, that, this wage thing that everybody keeps talking about, obviously we're trying to attract more drivers, right? And I think as we come out of the pandemic, are we going to be kind of in that same boat where there's like this consistent driver shortage? I don't know if that's an enigma that I'm not sure the industry is, I don't know if we'll ever figure it out, frankly, right? Like we're constantly struggling, competing against other industries, Amazon, all those sorts of things. It's complicated, right? It's just a complicated topic to try to, what can you do to onboard potential drivers? And realistically, a great wage is a great incentive to do that, but you also got to consider other elements like what are the buses that you're running? What does that look like? What kind of community outreach are you doing? I know one big thing that we've talked about is kind of for our upcoming Green Bus Summit that is April 20th through the 22nd, does taking your fleet and making it green, does that attract drivers? Do they want to drive that electric bus or that propane bus or something that's a little cleaner, something that people are more, inclined to feel like they're in a bus that is better for their community, better for their kids? Does health and wellness play into the factor of hiring these drivers? And I mean, I'm saying yes. I think that makes a difference because, if you're sitting in your office all day, you want the environment to feel nice. You want to be in your school bus all day. You want the environment to be nice. That's your workplace, right? So I think people really got to think from that standpoint, like maybe, hey, going green may have a positive effect on driver recruitment, retention. That's what I think, Ryan. I mean, what's your take on that?
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about, there's the VW money, obviously, and that's still out there. That's now a finite program. But the latest I've seen, there's still 80% of that money that still needs to be dispersed and spent. So there's still a lot of VW money out there that we had an article to this point last year, in fact, that we talked about, utilizing these grant funds, whether it be VW or one of the state environmental funds, to not only go green, but can you update your school buses to have that latest safety equipment? It's not just the standpoint of having that green bus and it's electric or it's quieter, though, it's obviously the less emissions. Those are all definite benefits, but it's also being able to update a 10 or 15-year-old bus that doesn't have the digital camera systems, doesn't have the LED lights, doesn't have seat belts. I know, talking with a transportation director last week in Texas, he's utilizing VW money for really eyeing safety improvements. I believe actually the buses might even be diesel, because diesel is still an approved use of funds in a lot of states. But he's talking about collision mitigation that he's bringing in. He's talking about the LEDs and the seat belts. Of course, Texas has that law there. So this is enabling school districts to really beef up their fleets and get them up into the 21st century in terms of not just fuel and energy, but, safety for the kiddos.
Yeah, I've been hearing about some big movers and shakers out there too. Our current transportation director of the year that was in our November 2020 issue, Mr. Todd Watkins in Montgomery County, man, they made a big announcement about their investment in electric. You want to break it down for our audience on what's going on there, Ryan, with that story?
Yeah, so Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland, it's one of, if not the biggest school district in Maryland and one of the top 10, I believe, in the nation. So they've really taken an innovative approach. So many folks, again, are talking about funding and, we need funding. And there's been a big push, obviously, on the federal level with President Joe Biden's plans to electrify the entire fleet of school buses nationwide. It's going to take time. It's going to take money. There's a lot of capital outlay that you need to bring to the table with that. But what Montgomery County has done is they are working with a company called Highland Electric, which essentially takes all of those upfront costs and pays for them. So essentially what Montgomery County is doing is they're entering a lease partnership with Highland. Highland provides the money upfront to pay for that incremental cost of the electric buses. It pays for the infrastructure, the charging, all of that. So Montgomery County is a big consumer of Thomas-built buses. So they're bringing in that Julie C2, which has that Proterra electric drive. So basically what Todd is telling us is that they're essentially going to be spending the same amount of outlay that they would for purchasing and operating diesel each year. That's not going to change. That number is going to continue at least over the next 4 years. So this is a fleet of 1,378 buses, I believe. So over the next 4 years, they're looking at flipping about 325 of those from diesel to electric. Todd's telling me that, based upon how that goes, then they'll go ahead and start moving forward over the next, 8 to 10 years to move everything over to electric. So very big deployment there, very big conversion from diesel to electric. And, it's like the dominoes are falling right now. Last week, LA Unified School District announced that they are going electric. They're going to be buying Lion electric buses. And the School District of Philadelphia has gotten some grants, and they are going ahead and going on the road toward flipping their 350 bus fleet over to electric. So a lot going on there.
Yeah, and I was speaking to an industry insider earlier this week too, and they had indicated down in Florida there was $57 million in VW mitigation trust fund money that was going to be going for school bus electrification too. So down in Florida as well, that's happening, right? They're tapping into VW money. This is even before Biden rolls out any of the funds that he wants to do to initiate some of this electrification. So I agree with you, Ryan. Like, I feel like there's just a tipping point, and we're starting to see headline after headline after headline of investment into alternative green energy, and electric seems to be very top of mind for people. And I want to talk about technology and kind of people that are investing more in that. And our tech tip is brought to you by Zonar, a leader in smart fleet management. Fixing vehicle problems is pricey. Add unexpected costs like towing, your costs go up. Keep vehicles running smoothly by shifting to a more proactive approach to maintenance. Enhance preventative maintenance measures with modern fleet technologies and extend those efforts with predictive solutions to prevent future issues and breakdowns. Your fleet, shop, and budget will thank you. Learn more at zonarsystems.com/rethink. That's zonarsystems.com/rethink. All right, coming up next, I'm talking with Antonio Civitella, President and CEO of TransFinder. He's going to give us an update on all the great new technologies TransFinder has available for you and your fleet. All right, I want to welcome Antonio Civitella to the podcast from TransFinder, President, CEO. Tony, I've been hearing a lot of buzz lately about your new Wayfinder product, navigation, attendance, it's COVID craziness out there. Like, what's the buzz? What's going on with that lately?
Glad you're asking. Well, Wayfinder is it's an app for the driver. This app sits inside the bus. So now we have things inside the bus too, which is exciting. So what it does is it really gives the instructions to turn left and 300 feet, turn right on this street. So a lot of our clients are loving it. And Tony, the big thing is that there's a lot of navigation products out there. But the difference between Wayfinder and anything else out there is that it uses the same map that our clients are using building the routes. So if there's a new street, or maybe there's a left-hand turn that in the morning they don't want to avoid or prohibit, well, guess what? If the driver goes off path in Wayfinder and somehow it needs to reroute, that left-hand turn is not going to be an option. So those are what things our clients are loving. It's like, wow, it matches my map. And that's really cool. So imagine when you're driving along and you're using other navigation products, it'll take you down roads that maybe it's not safe. Wayfinder bakes all that local knowledge that the routers have right into the app that actually sits inside the bus.
Yeah, so if I'm not using TransFinder products right now, can I get Wayfinder? Is that possible? Like, how does that work? Do I have to have the full routing suite?
Well, Wayfinder is available. It's free download. Unfortunately, you do need a valid client ID, so you do need the routing system. Wayfinder lets you navigate and take attendance of trips that were created in our routing system. We have two routing systems out there. We have our Routefinder Pro and our Routefinder Plus. So it doesn't matter which versions you have, it will work with both products. But yes, that's a requirement.
Excellent. And then you also had a new partnership with Zonar as well. Do you want to dive in? What are customers saying about that new partnership that you guys have set up with that turn-by-turn navigation? It's just, man, there's just something really special about having that in the bus. Like, your driver's driving and, hey, you have a substitute driver, and now, like, they know the way, right? Like, your product is giving them that roadmap to be able to deliver quality navigation in vehicle. It's just such a fresh way of thinking about things.
It really is, Tone. And I tell you, the product Wayfinder is navigation. It does attendance. There's so much there. Time and attendance for the driver. But so many of our clients are saying, well, which tablet should I buy? Does it work on this phone? And so we're sort of realizing that, well, we need to start recommending some devices. And then, of course, here Zonar has the entire stack. They have a GPS device. They have a tablet. They have an RFID reader. At this point, so now our clients that do want to buy all of it, they don't want to just go shop around and buy bits and pieces. They want one-stop shop. So now with our reseller and partnership agreement with Zonar, our clients could come directly to us saying, we want an app that works inside the vehicle that will take attendance, will give our drivers the left and rights and all those good things, the directions, but we don't know what kind of hardware we should buy. Well, we got that covered. We have it. So we can now at this point provide them a complete solution. And really, we've been waiting for this type of announcement for a long time because we needed a one solution. It's almost like it's under one umbrella. Our clients now could buy routing, navigation, attendance, parent apps, all those things, including now all the hardware. And we obviously chose the leader, and it's Zonar. We chose their platform. So they get all those benefits that Zonar will provide you when you get those devices. And by the way, I'm learning all the time about those devices, even their GPS device. I heard one of the things that goes wrong on these GPS devices is that the SIM card, because it's probably bolted on the chassis and there's a lot of shaking and rattling. Think about this, right? All these vehicles. You guys all rode the bus, and you're bouncing around. Well, that hardware device, it's one of the first thing that goes wrong, that the SIM card just somehow gets loose. Well, the Zonar V4, it's soldered. It's in there. It's not going anywhere. That's one of the things that we love about this company. And by the way, I could go on and on those functionalities and those benefits. And really, those are advantages on why we chose that hardware platform to put our software. So a lot of good things. We're excited. And really, it's at this point, we really are moving very fast. We're coming out with new versions all the time. And Tony, it's because we're getting a lot of great feedback from our clients. And that's what's made us who we are. We want all of it. We want the good, the bad, and the ugly from our clients. And that's really what makes us and shapes us. So excited. We made a huge announcement. Our Roughfinder Plus is about to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. I keep saying it's one of our best things we've ever developed. Wayfinder is really going to be at that level. So, man, stay tuned.
Awesome. So if I'm interested in learning more about Wayfinder or the Zonar partnership, which is an excellent partnership, by the way, that is an amazing thing to offer that to your customers. Who do I call? Who do I email? What's that kind of next step for me?
Well, there's a lot of things. You could obviously call your account executive. We have account executives that are assigned to clients. Of course, the new business side, you could always visit our website, transponder.com. Obviously, at that point, it does require you to get the routing system. So if you don't have it, email getplus@transponder.com. Hopefully, we hear from you.
Excellent. Hey, you know what? If you guys reach out to Antonio and his team, be sure and mention the STN podcast that you heard it here. They love getting feedback from you guys, the listeners. We love you, School Transportation Nation. All right, Tony, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast today. We really appreciate your time and give us an update on all the great products and solutions that TransFinder is offering. Coming up next, we've got an interview with Ryan and Reghan Mahaffey, Director of Transportation at Aspen Public Schools in Colorado.
Welcoming to the School Transportation Nation stage this week, Reghan Mahaffey, the Director of Transportation at Aspen Public Schools in Colorado. Reghan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan.
So the burning question on my mind, and I know on all our audience right now, Reghan, skiing or snowboarding?
Snowboard now, but I used to be a skier.
Okay. So I know a little gotcha question to start off our conversation. So how has the snow been this winter?
It's been much better this past month. It was a little rough looking, I will admit, in late December, January. We had a large break where we weren't getting any snow. So mountains weren't that pretty, but we've had a really good snow month. So snow's looking awesome right now.
Nice. And then, of course, everyone's up there social distancing. It's pretty easy to do on the slopes.
It is.
But for school buses, not so much. Why don't you take us through how you started the school year and then where you are now?
Yeah, so we initially started August 24th with pre-K students. We started transporting them immediately on our normal start date with them. But we pushed back the start date of our elementary K through 4 until after Labor Day. So September 8th, we started in a hybrid model K through 4. And then our 5 through 12 were remote until about October 26th is when we brought the 5 through 12 back. And they went into a hybrid model. And at that point, our K through 4 went into a full in-person model. Due to COVID, this was actually the first year that we transitioned from a one-tier transportation model to a two-tiered system, where we started transporting our pre-K through 4th on one route, and then we'd circle back and go get our 5 through 12 students. So that was new for us. Never had that experience before, but I think we handled it pretty well. And we seem to be liking it a lot. It's definitely helped with student behavior. So that was a nice plus that COVID kind of gave us this year.
Absolutely. And so I understand end of February, by the end of the last month, you had everyone back. Sounds like your school buses are maybe not running at full capacity, but you have most of your kiddos. Now, in terms of the ridership, because I know we've talked with a lot of school districts across the nation, and there was a lot of anticipation heading into the school year about, oh my God, how are we going to do this with social distancing? But people were looking at previous numbers. What has been the ridership numbers for you this year compared to years past?
Drastically different. So when we had the one tier, we averaged about 60 kids on board. Now with the two-tiered system, we're looking more at our buses are running between 20 to 24 kids. There's a few buses that maybe have 36 kids on it, but we're averaging right around the 25. So a lot smaller.
And is that because of just parents opting to not have their kids on the bus during this whole pandemic?
Yes, that's a lot of it. There's some parents who are definitely still very wary of it, so they're just choosing to drive their students in, pick them up. There's other parents who chose not to have their students ride the bus because of our quarantine policy for the first half of the school year. So in the fall, if there was a single positive case on the bus, the entire bus, every student, including the driver, went on quarantine for 2 weeks. So a lot of parents opted out of using transportation because of our quarantine policy. When that changed, we started seeing our ridership increase again.
And with that, has there been anything the school district has had to do, like regarding, are you guys paying parents, reimbursing them to take their kids if they would normally be school bus eligible, but they opt out? How does that look?
No, actually, that hasn't come up at all. Most of our parents are just happy to transport them. I think they're just kind of understanding of the times. Understandably, for if we had any SPED students, we would certainly have to offer that. But we've made it a point to make sure that we are transporting all of our SPED students as much as possible and keeping them safe.
Okay. And with regard to those special education students, what have your staff had to do differently? Because obviously, you can't really social distance those kids. And a lot of these kids, they have some kind of medical need that they can't wear masks. Did that lead to new training for those drivers and those aides in terms of loading wheelchairs and, sitting with kids that maybe were nonverbal or needed to have an oxygen tank or anything like that?
Well, I mean, we're a pretty small district, so I think we don't really have a lot of students who have high needs such as that. So we've kind of been lucky in that regards that we haven't really had to adjust that much. We do have a couple of students in wheelchairs, but with masks and just increased sanitization and cleaning really took care of most of that. And, we really haven't had an issue or cases where students aren't wearing their masks. We have a few here and there, but most everyone, we have basically 100% compliance on mask wearing on our buses, which is kind of amazing.
Okay. And how do you handle those one-offs when maybe there is a mask issue? You said you maybe have run into that a couple times, but is that similar to previous years when there were just any kind of bus discipline issue? That would go that route, or are you doing anything different?
Definitely some of that. We keep extra masks on board as well. So if it's just a case of a kid forgetting a mask, we can provide them one. If it's one where it's kind of more of an irritant and it's in regards to their needs and kind of how we handle it, what we kind of do is we kind of remove students in that direct area so that there's more of a space around it. So we kind of make it more safe for that student to be without a mask on. So meeting their needs and not agitating the student while also keeping all of our other students safe.
And you mentioned cleaning. So that's been something that has entered into the everyday to-do list for drivers between runs, between routes, definitely at the end of the day. Something that certainly wasn't looked at as hard. What did you guys used to do with cleaning? Was it maybe like once a week?
Yeah, I mean, most drivers, sweeping and trash were a daily activity here. We've got bears out here, so we don't want to keep trash on our buses. So that's always been kind of a daily thing.
No bears on school buses. No, let's keep those.
We try to avoid that as much as possible. But definitely before, it used to be, maybe a wash of the outside bus maybe twice a month, and then mopping maybe once a week. It's now a lot more frequent. So we've got buses being cleaned on a daily basis. Not only just the seats are getting cleaned daily, floors are being swept, trash out like normal, and then we're sanitizing between each run. So we sanitize 4 times a day. We wash the seats down once a day and touch all surfaces. We do all of our windows. So it's a lot more deep clean. Our buses are certainly looking cleaner this year, so that's a nice plus.
Exactly. So much with this pandemic, it's, introducing things that we should already be doing. Yeah. Obviously, from a standpoint of everyone washing their hands and not sneezing on each other or coughing on each other, that's definitely a good thing. Raising that awareness. It's sad that it took a pandemic, but certainly in terms of cleaning buses, it adds a lot more costs.
Yes, it does.
And, you've been most school districts have been able to benefit from some federal funding to make that happen. One of the things that we've also seen is ventilation systems. Now, that's been very slow on the adoption. Mm-hmm. A lot of these ventilation systems, HEPA filters, are now available for school buses to keep that air clean. Certainly in a place like Aspen, it's probably not conducive in early March to be rolling down the windows for ventilation like the CDC first recommended last year. But you guys have, for a couple months now, been using ventilation systems on your school buses. Tell us about that.
When the decision was made to kind of reintroduce all of the kids and go back to full in person, and we were going into winter months, so we knew a spike was going to happen and temperatures were going to be around 10 degrees and snowing. Don't really want your windows open during that. So we started pursuing HEPA filters for all of our buses. And with Webasto and Thomas, we were able to get all of those. So we used a lot of CARES funding actually to purchase those because it was a steep initial cost. I mean, these units aren't cheap. They're pretty pricey, just over like $1,000 a unit. So to outfit, thankfully we're small. We only got about 30 buses. So to outfit all of them and have a few extra, it cost us about $34,000.
Okay. And then, but certainly going forward, as I know that I've talked with a lot of school districts about this and a lot of folks, like a lot of things that are new, they're waiting to see kind of how it all shakes out. Mm-hmm. They want to hear what folks say like yourself who are using them. So we do have this article coming out here in March. Definitely that's available on the website, stnonline.com. And of course, it'll be hitting the mailboxes very soon. But one of the things that has to be on your mind now is this going to be standard operating procedure? Are you going to try to, with all your new school bus purchases, have systems, or are you thinking that it's going to be just something that is this COVID-19 reality? Because we know the flu is always going to be there, the common cold. They're saying that this COVID-19 is going to basically turn into the next flu that we have. It's just going to be a seasonal thing. Is this now something that you're needing to feel that you have to budget for?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, now that we've got the units, the inserts and the replacement filters aren't as pricey. So it drops down significantly to about $250. So that's completely reasonable. And, just after having them for this winter season, I remember what it was last year with drivers being out sick, kids being out sick. And it was just constant. There was a different driver out sick every other week. This year, we haven't experienced that. Like, I don't think I've had a single driver out sick until just recently, which is unrelated, but not cold-like or anything like that, which is astounding. So the only thing that's really been changed is, one, our cleanliness standards have certainly been upped, but our HEPA filters, and I think that has a lot to do with it, and that it's a lot cleaner air. You don't have, when someone sneezes, it's going around the bus, and then you've got kind of like the flu spread in the bus that happens. So I absolutely think that's going to be something that continues for us.
And as Director of Transportation, like many of your peers across the nation, you are also driving routes as needed. In fact, you're going to be doing that a little bit later today. You've been driving these buses. What have you noticed just as a driver in terms of the cleanliness of the air?
I mean, it certainly doesn't smell as bad. Like, certain buses will smell worse depending on the age of them, just based off of the fumes and what kids are on. But did PE class just get out before your route or those kind of things? Yeah, you never know. But certainly the smells have gone down dramatically just from that. And, you notice when there's cleaner air about. Yeah, I hear it from people who come from the city and visit Aspen. There's just a noticeable difference. I mean, we get the nice mountain fresh air compared to a city pollution. So you do notice that difference when you smell it. I will say they are a little bit loud. So when you think about placement, you should be aware that you probably don't want to annoy the drivers by having it directly behind the driver where you place this filter. So.
Absolutely. And I believe you've chosen to install them underneath a bus seat about 8 rows back, about halfway back through the bus. But I understand from a Bossa, you can also mount them on the ceiling or on the side panel, kind of up toward the ceiling. So a lot of options there to look at. So again, we have that article out, stnonline.com. Head over to our magazine section. You can find that for March. Speaking of the drivers too and their health, what about vaccines? That's been a hot topic of late. First of all, you probably have around a couple dozen, 30 drivers or so. Are a lot of those at that at-risk age of over 65, over 70? Have they gotten vaccines? And if not, or regardless if they have or not, is this something that the district is requiring, or is it going to be optional?
So, yeah, most certainly, I'm sure like a lot of other transportation agencies, I do have a lot of at-risk employees who are right in that age group. So that was another consideration for a lot of things that I chose to do this year, of trying to protect their health. In Colorado, Governor Polis actually upped when K through 12 staff will get there. So we've already had our first dose. We got our first dose almost 21 days ago. We go for our second dose Friday. So we will all pretty much be vaccinated by Friday. Some of my staff who got in earlier are already completely vaccinated. They're done. It's looking good for us. I don't think the district has made any mandates at this point. They haven't communicated that if you don't get it, you can't work here. So at this point, it's just optional, but it is heavily recommended.
Oh, well, you guys have been doing a great job, like so many districts across the nation, rolling with the punches on this thing. And the punches are going to continue to be thrown. Hopefully, though, with these vaccines, we're getting a little bit closer to that light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm sure you're keeping your fingers and toes crossed that the 2021-22 school year will be like quote unquote normal and you don't have to deal with all this mess. But Reghan, I really appreciate you joining us. I know you have a route to go service, so drive safe and thanks again. And let's talk soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ryan.
I want to extend a special thank you to Antonio Civitella for joining us on the podcast today, as well as Reghan. Really interesting interviews. We appreciate our sponsors, TransFinder, Zonar, and Purell brand hand sanitizers. Thanks a lot, guys, for supporting this episode. It's great to have everybody listening to the podcast this week. We got so much going on, a lot of new updates. Don't forget to check out that brand new March edition on the STN website, stnonline.com, for all the stories, information, everything happening right now with funding, coronavirus, pandemic updates, cleaning, air purification, technology, everything you could possibly need under one roof at stnonline.com. Be sure and check out the latest and greatest. We appreciate you for listening. Be sure and subscribe, stream, review. We love the 5-star reviews. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll see you next week, Nation.